Hey, what's up? It's KHG back again with some more Warhammer. As promised, today we're going to look into the Primarch Logar. Now, I don't know much about him. I just know he was a part of the Horus Heresy along with some of the other Primarchs. I really don't even know all of their names, but I do know he played a part in the betrayal of the Emperor of Mankind. Anyway, this is going to be a long video, probably about 30 some odd minutes, because it was hard for me to find a lot of information on Logar from just one person's video. So I took two videos. So what I'm going to try to do in this video is take the parts that interest me more or just key notes from each video and make one video out of it. The creators that I'm using for this video today are going to be Major Kill and 40K Theories. When I switch from different creator, you'll see their logo. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the Primarch Logar, and I believe his legion is the Word Bearers. Anyway, as you can tell, I don't know much, but I'm gonna learn today. Let's get into it.
Today we'll go over who the Word Bearers are and what they got up to during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy. We'll also go over the life of their Primarch Lorga, and if he actually had a point about chaos, or was he just a religious nut who needed to be kept away from childcare centres. When the God Emperor of Mankind first created the Primarchs, he would read them bedtime stories whilst they were in their gestation capsules. For Rogel Dawn, he read 10 books on architecture. For Conrad, he read old Batman comics. And for Lorga, he picked up a random fiction novel he found in an old library. Unfortunately, this turned out to be the Holy Bible, hence the seeds of corruption were planted in Lorga when he was very young.
Lorga was the Primarch of the 17th Legion of the Legio Astartes, the Word Bearers.
The 17th Legion was named the Imperial Heralds by the Emperor upon their creation. Lorga's sons, then called the Imperial Heralds, they were to be the legion that stomped out religion and spread the truth of atheism. They were heralds of the Imperial truth, again adding to the hectic irony of what they ended up doing instead. By the time the Biggie realised his mistake, it was too late. The gods of chaos had snatched the baby Primarchs from their nursery and scattered them across the galaxy. Each Primarch landed on a different planet, some landed on civilized worlds and quickly became gods among their people. Lorgar fell into the planetary equivalent of a church filled with registered sex offenders.
Upon the religious world of Colchis,
He was quickly found by a dickhead called Corferion, who had been exiled from the Society of Colchis due to the fact that he tried to kiddie fiddle 7-year-olds, which was 2 years shy of the acceptable age of kiddie fiddling on Colchis. See, Colchis, despite my pedo joke.
Is this true? Is this like really in the lore pedophile thing? Let me know in the comments.
The dominant religion of Colchis was actually the worship of the gods of chaos. Whoopsies. As Lorgar rapidly aged, Corferion realised he was special, and he could be used to regain favour in the church, or even dominate it. He realised that Lorgar was a little slut and liked it rough, so instead of winning his loyalty and devotion through being a cool dad, he instead physically, emotionally, and I'm going to say sexually abused Lorgar. Lorgar received more visions of the Emperor and began to create his own religion. As Lorgar was creating this religion of the One, he was also conquering each city on Colchis, one by one. In no time at all, he had taken the entire planet. Yes, Lorgar, the guy who felt the chaos first and pretty much caused the Horus Heresy, was also the Primarch who eradicated chaos from his home planet. Within a year of Lorgar's victory, the Emperor arrived. Now, a lot of people bring up a good point here. The Emperor did not want to be seen as a god, yet walked around in 12-foot tall golden armor while glowing and had a flaming sword. If he toned down the aesthetics a bit, maybe it would be a bit easier to be like, oh look, a powerful psyker, instead of, holy guacamole, it's the God Emperor of Mankind.
before turning traitor, Lorga was a zealous worshipper of the Master of Mankind, believing him to be a god incarnate.
For months they partied, the Biggie disapproving heavily of a planet which, if it had been found by the Imperial Heralds without Lorgar on it, would have likely been exterminated. Ironically, the Emperor denying his own divinity only made Lorgar think he was even more of a god, as what kind of all-powerful mortal would display such humility?
Lorgar wrote what would become known as the Lectitio Divinitatis, a book that put forward the idea of the Emperor as a living god.
Corferion was given superhuman abilities, and another called Erebus was turned into a space marine. Corfarion and Erebus would more or less then be responsible for the entirety of the galaxy's problems. Lorga wasn't stupid, however. He was smart enough to know that inheriting a legion full of atheists, given to him by the galaxy's biggest atheist, weren't gonna drink from his Kool-Aid straight away. It took years of subtle changes to the Terran-born heralds, as well as full religious induction of new recruits before the Legion was turned into the Word-Bearers. Instead of being a slow Legion in terms of bringing planets into the Imperium due to them having to crush religion, they became a slow Legion because they spent so long building religion.
This in turn made the Legion laboriously slow in their conquests during the Great Crusade. Whenever worlds were made compliant by the Word-Bearers Legion, the Legion would remain following the compliance, to erect temples dedicated to the Emperor of Mankind, and to spread the word of the Lectitio Divinitatis.
Every planet they took over, they would spend months or even years converting them to see the Emperor as a god,
as well as teaching worlds that had been subjected to compliance by the Word-Bearers into worshipping the Emperor as a god, an act which the Emperor himself despised.
As such, they were the slowest of the legions by far. Once they beat a planet's military might with ruthless efficiency, they would pull down all the religious buildings, burn all the religious texts, and use the fire from those texts, they would burn everyone who didn't accept the Imperial truth. This system had the added benefit of also removing all pedophiles from the planet that the Heralds took over. The one thing he would not overlook, however, was a slow compliance rate. If Lorga had done his weird religious voodoo but did it quickly, it's likely the Emperor never would have come for him. He got the Ultramarines to blow up the Word-Bearers' favourite city. He then psychically raped all of them and forced them to kneel before him, before then roasting the shit out of them for being a bunch of Bible-jerking simps. He basically said, if you want to know what it's like to serve a god, this is it. Your free will is gone, your power is gone, you're all an insect beneath me. He wanted to show them that gods are assholes. Whilst Logar did finally accept that the Biggie was not a god, he still craved a god in his life. This kind of means that Lorga would have fallen to chaos no matter what, unless the Biggie was able to manipulate Lorga into spreading the Imperial truth, tricking him into thinking it was a religion. Following that little incident, Lorga had an existential crisis, and was told by Kor and Erebus that there were gods out there and he should go praise them instead. Hence Lorga began his pilgrimage to find a sugar daddy. While he was off, he got his legion to tear across the galaxy and bring planets into Imperial compliance at such a rate that it surpassed the other legions. Everyone thought Lorga had finally gotten the message, but instead Lorga was off playing with demons and just used this as a cover.
The Word-Bearers were actually the first to fully embrace the ruinous powers. Logar ordered all texts that referred to the Emperor as a god to be burned.
These planets were also seeded with chaos corruption, so that when the time came, they declared their allegiance to chaos.
Despite the majority of these works being burned, many citizens within the Imperium managed to acquire copies of the Lectitio Divinitatis, with numerous secret cults of worship springing out throughout the course of the Great Crusade and even during the Horus Heresy, such as the Temple of the Saviour Emperor, which would eventually rise to power above all the religious cults and would eventually give rise to the Ecclesiarchy, the organisation that is now the state church of the modern-day Imperium.
Okay, now I understand where the religious part comes from, even though the Emperor was an atheist, he doesn't like the religious stuff. At the same time, how else do you get loyalty from your soldiers if you don't tell them God is on your side? They might go out to die for you. At least if you could make them believe that they're fighting for God or a higher power or a greater cause, they will have more zealous or, enthusiasm. What is it? What's the word I'm thinking of? Morale. Until the morale increases, the beatings will continue. But I'm just joking. At the same time, religion plays a part in the war. So it's confusing, but I understand them praising the Emperor as a god. I mean, technically he is. He does have godlike powers. So I don't get it. It's all confusing, and it seems like it was destined that everything that happened was going to happen.
Perhaps this is why Lorga, despite being the first Primarch to fall to chaos, is still seemingly revered.
Lorga went to the Eye of Terror and sent some of his sons to take a peek. Now, putting someone in the Eye of Terror without telling them what is up is like tricking your mate to grab an electric chicken wire. It's not the zap that gets ya, it's the fact that you didn't know the zap was coming. Hence, the Marines that went in either died or were possessed by demons. Lorga would then travel throughout the Eye of Terror, travelling through time with the help of a demonic guide to understand the nature of chaos. Sure, he was being manipulated, but to a way lesser degree than the other traitor Primarchs. He saw chaos for what it was and chose to join it anyway. By the time Logar finished his pilgrimage, he was a servant of chaos. He instead realised that for mankind to join in a harmonious relationship with hell, atheism had to go, and it was not going to go quietly. Logar was still the little bitch boy Primarch though, and he knew that no one would follow him against the Emperor, especially if they had to shove tentacles up their ass to do so. Hence, he put his efforts towards corrupting Horus,
a figure akin to the devil of ancient Abrahamic religions, who betrayed the Emperor for his own selfish reasons and lust for power.
He saw chaos for what it was and chose to join it anyway. Now, as bad as it sounds, Lorgar's perception of chaos was actually not that bad. Balanced joinings of demons and humans were possible, as displayed through his Galvor back. The only issue, however, is that once chaos gained control of the galaxy, it's likely that this balance would be shattered, and that chaos's evil nature would remove all the cool parts.
After all, unlike his brothers Angron, Fulgrim, Magnus, and Mortarion, who have all led vast invasion forces of heretic Astartes and demonic creatures, Lorga has only just emerged from the warp since his apotheosis into demonhood.
Hence, when Horus was put into a coma due to chaos shenanigans, and then awoke from that coma due to more chaos shenanigans, Lorga had the leader he needed. From there, he helped orchestrate the Istvan Dropsite massacre, where the Salamanders, Raven Guard, and Iron Hands were baited into attacking Horus, but ended up getting betrayed. Lorga had grown to realise that Horus was shit at leading chaos and decided he should take over instead. He bound Fulgrim to his will, and he planned out a pretty solid backstab on Horus that probably would have worked for anyone else other than Lorga. See, Lorga got betrayed, and when Horus arrived to meet him, Horus knew what Lorga was planning, and he beat the living shit out of him. Lorga was then banished from the rest of the heresy, whilst the word-bearers either pledged to Horus, continued to fight the Ultramarines, or went off to sulk with their daddy. The word-bearers were now without their Primarch, however stayed mostly coherent. They fell under the control of either Erebus or Kor Pharaon, who headed a dark council. However, Kor and Erebus are fighting a subtle war against each other for control of the entire legion. Horus invades Terra, kills the glorious Hawkboy, cripples the Emperor so badly that the Biggie would forever remain a massive strain on the Imperium's healthcare system before he himself would be completely obliterated by the Emperor. At some point during this, he also ascends to become a demon prince, probably just because the Chaos Gods felt bad for him.
Following the events of the civil war known as the Horus Heresy, the detailed records of the traitor Primarchs and the traitor legions were destroyed. Their homeworlds were either destroyed entirely or simply purged of all forms of life before being renamed and having their locations deleted from Imperial archives. And therefore many within the Imperium itself, outside the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes, believe that Lorga had fought against Horus Lupercal. Perhaps the Adeptus Ministorum simply chose not to acknowledge the fact that Lorga was himself a traitor, perhaps instead claiming that Lorga died during the Horus Heresy, despite the fact that Lorga is indeed alive and well, having been elevated to become a demon prince of Chaos Undivided. There wouldn't be many to argue otherwise within the Imperium itself.
Then we have Erebus. Now everyone knows Erebus. Fuck Erebus. But do you know why he sucks so much? Well, he was pretty much the architect of the Horus Heresy. He was a Chaos worshipper even before he met Lorga, and he bided his time. He introduced Lorga to Chaos, he supplied the knife which turned Horus to Chaos, he killed Argul Tal, he twisted Tarek's body into a demon, and he was a smug asshole about it the whole time. Horus peeled off his face for being an uppity asshole, and Khan kicked the living shit out of him for killing Argul. Then we have Kor Pharaon, who's just as big of an asshole as Erebus. Kor was forever Lorga's mentor, but he was also a stupid narcissist prick. At one point he actually had Gilliman at his mercy, and instead of killing him, he stabbed him with a chaos knife to try and corrupt him, just like how Horus was corrupted. The Wordbearers are a pretty disliked legion overall, due to their living characters being twats and their likeable characters being dead.
I'm gonna say this. The Emperor's whole plan was confusing to everybody, and it caused chaos amongst his ranks. It just did. It's like, okay, you want this, but not like that. Okay, you want this, but not quite like that. You know, you got big plans, but you're not gonna tell anybody. It was a breeding ground for just confusion, which creates chaos. It just does.
While the majority of Lorgar's publications were indeed burnt by his own order, Corferon, the Legion's first captain and the adoptive father of the Primarch, had indeed managed to save a precious few copies of the texts. But could there have been any reason for this train of thought? Lorgar, who himself was a powerful psyker and sorcerer, could have indeed enacted a contingency plan should Horus's rebellion fail. This leaves a potentially darker implication to the spread of the Imperial cult. To spread a religion seemingly dedicated to the Emperor of mankind. However, in actuality, these texts penned by Lorgar could in fact be an extremely subtle form of manipulation through the religious tenets penned within the Lectitio Divinitatis, or at least a revised version of, in order to spread galactic-wide worship of the ruinous powers.
Lorgar's original vision of chaos actually did have a valid point, and he was very well written in books such as The First Heretic. However, now he's just another pawn of the evil that is chaos. His morals and vision are broken, and there is nothing left except for a little pedo man who is scared of ravens.
This could explain as to why Lorgar spent over 10,000 years in his chambers in deep meditation, in order to act as some kind of psychic conduit to channel the prayers and reverent devotion of Imperial citizens into actually powering the Chaos Gods, or even himself to become an actual Chaos God as opposed to the Emperor. But given that Lorgar could have channeled at least 5 millennia worth of faith within him, or at least through him to the Chaos Gods, then that would mean his plan was not a complete and total failure.
And that does us for today, guys. The lore and story of Lorgar and the Wordbearers.
What do you think? Was the Imperial cult all part of Lorgar's grand plan, or is it all coincidental?
Well, that is the video. Let me know what you think. I couldn't find one video that explained everything that I wanted to know. After watching the first video, I had questions. After watching the second video, I had questions that were actually answered in the first video that I watched. I did reactions to both of them, and during editing one to make a video for y'all, I said, hold on, I'm gonna take the other video and put parts together to make a coherent story. Anyway, let me know how I did with that. But as far as Logar goes, this is my opinion. He had a plan, basically, to just mess over the Imperium. Like, between Magnus letting out chaos, him putting the Emperor as a god, and basically the Ministerium and everything like that, they are the reasons that, you know, the Imperium is just so jacked up, as far as I know so far. I'm gonna look into other Primarchs who had stuff to do with it. I mean, I didn't forget about Horus. Yeah, Horus too. As far as ongoing crap in the Imperium, these two, yes. The demons are still there. The ecclesiarchy is still there, and if 40K Stereo is correct, the Ministerium and everything that they do is feeding chaos, making chaos more powerful, making Logar more powerful, making the demons more powerful. I mean, this is just total chaos. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Am I on to something? Is he on to something? And like always, you could have been watching anything from anyone, but you were here with me, so I thank you. Till next time, I'm KHG. Peace.
You